Welcome, everybody, to Brains the Human Story. I am here today with Barbara Gustavson. Welcome, Barbara.
Katie, I'm so excited to talk to you and I'm looking forward. I love talking to you anytime. So I've been especially looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Everybody, Barbara is one of the most beautiful humans that I know.
Oh,
And for yourself, if you have built a life of showing up for your business, your team, your family, and you feel the weight of that responsibility, Barbara today is going to talk about some tools about unlocking productive peace and feeling like yourself again. Barbara, I love that.
yeah. Peace is one of those when I really started looking at what my values were, and these are like not just what I value in the moment, but I would say even deeper than a value, a principle in my life. Peace is at the top of the list and
Mm,
is something that I've always craved. And I've been able to create those moments, but to really look at it as even if I'm not experiencing peace every moment, I can still invite it in. It's still in me. It just needs to be kind of revitalized at the time, whatever I'm working through. So it's one of those things I see as you don't lose peace. Sometimes we think we lose our peace. It's still inside of us. We just have to connect to it again.
I love that. So, Barbara has worked with coaches, clinicians, and educators around the world to integrate brain-based strategies. She's also partnered with organizations. She's a leadership facilitator with a master's in psychology and oversees Dr. Daniel Amen's brain health certifications. And she's also the author of two other books, The Permission to Be Bold and co-author of Breaking Average. And today we're here to talk about Regroup, which I saw, Barb. It's a USA Today featured bestseller.
Yes, I am so excited that it's landing because I was a little bit worried because there's still this craving to be as productive as we can get things done. And my book is kind of the opposite of that. So I really didn't know how it would land with people. Yet I'm hearing, okay, book is giving language to what I've been feeling so much. And it's okay that I give myself permission to step back. It doesn't mean I have to give up everything. So I'm excited that it's landing and people are really understanding that, yeah, it's needed. It's not only needed, but the people that I'm serving, they need me to be at my best.
Mm, mm. So before we start, Barb, I would love for you to share your journey in terms of learning and development. Because you shared a story with me about how with your schooling, and I found it so inspirational. Yeah, would you share that story with us?
I will. And I think you're probably one of the few that I've shared that because I never considered it as inspirational because I think it's just something I tucked away and hid and I just kind of moved on. I can remember at a very early age struggling with learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those like they all it just didn't click for me. And it frustrated me because I actually love to learn. And so I remember my parents hiring tutors. I would barely pass with a C. And I remember just thinking, how am I going to, work with college? And I really wanted to go to college. I remember my senior year sitting down with my guidance counselor, and he said to me, it's okay. You don't go to college. You're not educational material. You'll make a wonderful wife. And while that's something I aspired to do, it really just kind of kicked me in the gut because
Wow.
it really spoke to me that if my teachers didn't believe in me, if my guidance counselors didn't believe in me, maybe there was something wrong with me. And maybe, wasn't worth the effort. But it also ticked me off. I was
Yeah.
like, I want to prove I'm wrong. But so I did go to college. I enrolled at a university and I did how you take the journal classes. I did okay in that. But then my freshman year during the summer, I was in a horseback riding accident. And I remember going back into my sophomore year that following fall, and I didn't feel the same. I just remember having ringing in my ears. I was on edge all the time. And I had broken my back in that accident. And I remember hitting my head hard, but nobody scanned me. I was never knocked unconscious,
Mm,
but I struggled even more with school. Um, the memory, just nothing would stick. And I remember I dropped out and I enrolled at a closer university back at home, but it just seemed like this revolving door. I would enroll in classes, I would withdraw because I couldn't get ahead. And it really disappointed me. And I remember feeling disappointed in myself, thinking I was stupid. And it just kind of that guidance counselor, saying you're not
mm,
college material. So the interesting thing though is I ended up getting a really great job as a financial analyst, which it cracks me up today because math was not my thing. But I love detective work. I love solving things. And this job was very much like that. Um, so during that job, I felt my confidence build and I decided to enroll it in college again. By that time, I had married, had kids, and I'm thinking, what am I doing going to school with
um,
all this? But I took one class at a time and I realized when I was able to break things down and double down, sometimes triple down, like I had to really learn things over and over again. 12 years later, I graduated and I got my degree, and I got a probably more, um, I think probably more meaningful than a degree. I got an award for being the most improved student and for that term. And for me,
wow.
that was everything. And I was probably the first time I realized I wasn't dumb. Um, and so I just really began to get curious, why is it learning so hard when I love it so much? And really led to me learning about my brain and, kind of fast forward today and being able to now have a master's in psychology. And I realized that it was still really hard, but I took so many tools and through my brain rehabilitation, I was able to get up to a place where I could be really effective with my studies as far as the learning process. So
Mm,
now I'm really proud of myself, and I recognize there's also a lot of adult learners who struggle with their learning for some reason or another. It has nothing to do with how smart they are. They may learn in a different way, or they may have some areas that struggle in the brain. But if they're determined enough, and I think that's probably for me, I get that from both my parents. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure it out.
mm. It's just, I find that story just so inspirational, Barb. Um, when you talk about adults not learning or finding it a little bit more difficult, do you think it can come back to what you're covering in Regroup, that we're just overwhelmed and burnt out?
Yes, I think some of it does. Like, I really do believe if someone believes that there's an underlying challenge, with the brain, it definitely warrants it being looked into. Just because with me, I didn't realize that I had some underlying mild, brain injuries that
Mm,
really mapped and connected to some of the symptoms. It really came through with the Erlin's disorder from the, back head injury in the back of the head, also auditory processing disorder, which is a brain processing, dysgraphia, which, really explains sometimes how it's challenging to really extract my thoughts, putting it on paper, and dyscalculia, that explained the math piece of it. So I think it is when someone is noticing a significant issue, it is helpful to look into it. With my framework and regroup, I really look at it through the lens is even if we're successful in our day to day lives, even if we're high functioning, we're getting things done, we might even be getting good sleep. If there's still something, you feel this enormous pressure or this weight that you feel like you're carrying, it's really important to step back and see where perhaps these little misalignments might be occurring in your life.
Mm-mm. So you write about showing up for everybody else while quietly being worn down or talk about carrying this weight. Was there a specific moment that you realized you couldn't keep going the way you were?
There's probably more than one
Yeah.
moment. It's like, okay, which one? Um, I will say that um, a specific moment, and it was early on. I was at a 15-year caregiving season with my dad. Prior to that, a 2-year caregiving season with my mom. And when my mom had her second stroke, at the time, I was commuting in opposite directions. I was
Wow.
commuting to work near DC, and in the opposite direction, I was commuting to the Hampton Roads area to support my mom when she was in ICU and then when she was in therapy. And that was the time I was still raising my son, who had some challenges at the time, and I felt like I could do it all. Here comes Barbara to save the day.
Yeah.
It's not that I was trying to carry that, energy with me, but I was like, no matter what, I'm going to take care of my family, no matter what it takes. I didn't realize that the high cost it would come to my
Mm,
health, to my marriage, to my relationships with my friends. There was this accumulation of costs. And I often tell people, and a mentor shared with me, listen to the whisper, don't wait by the two, for the 2x4.
mm,
And I had some pretty significant 2x4 moments because I didn't listen to what my body, my brain was quietly telling me.
mm. I think it's so many people would resonate with what you're saying, Barb. That they're caregiving, they're looking after people, they're trying to work, race around and do everything. So, what were the hidden stresses? What were the whispers that started happening for you?
Yeah, well, the quiet whispers, exhaustion, brain
Mm,
fog. And a lot of this is before I went through my own brain rehabilitation and understood what was happening. High anxiety, panic attacks.
mm,
And the interesting thing is, not even my husband, like I would talk about it, but he wouldn't see me in those moments because I hid it very well. So it was hard for him to really understand. But I just remember going in our closet and just falling apart and just not having the words to express how I was feeling. And but I could realize that it was my nervous system. It was probably on high alert, probably hypo aroused and hypo, disconnected for
mm,
a really long time. And I had a hard time feeling regulated. And I think those were more of the quiet whispers. And I would say probably a 2x4 moment back in 2017. I lost use of my right arm and I had this excruciating pain in my shoulder. I had vertigo, all these weird symptoms,
oh my
allergies
gosh.
heightened. And I had been to so many specialists. Nobody could find out, figure out what it was. And somebody mentioned a specific chiropractor. I went to them, and it turned out that through my old head injury, my disc had slipped. It was pressing on my brain stem, but it was causing all these symptoms. And it's a really long word for it. So
Mm,
it turned out that I was over 2 inches shorter on one side, and my whole body had been compensating over the years. And that's the amazing thing. We have such a resilience, and our
mm,
body and brain has a resilience, but we all have a threshold or a tipping point. Sometimes it says, okay, I can't take, something has to change. And so through tiny adjustments, and I still go once a month, they were able to get me back aligned. And I got used to my arm back. It was just incredible. It really got me thinking, though, what areas of my life and other places are misaligned that I don't even know
mm.
about.
Ah, beautiful.
And it
Mm,
just really took me on a journey of examining you know, my purpose, my relationships, my thinking. That was probably a big piece of it. Also, my just the impact that I wanted to make. I felt like it took me forever to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I found this thing. Why was it so hard? And I think that was the biggest thing that was frustrating. Why didn't I have the energy to do this thing I was passionate about? So really just looking at where I was misaligned. And I needed to give my body and my mind and my whole nervous system time to heal through these regroups that I started taking, starting once a month. And I named it, I didn't choose the name. Somebody called it this and I loved it. They call it their dog days, day away with God. So those were kind of my first or, early regroups. I would just take a day away and just sometimes do nothing. And for someone who's busy or type A, that's really hard to do nothing. It might feel torturous. But what I found was at the end of the weekend, I came back home. I was happier. I was clearer. I had more energy. And my husband took notice. He's like, you are like a different person. So he was fully on board and even encourages me to this day to take a regroup every month.
And it's so important, Barb, just hearing you talk about just taking that time for yourself, noticing what you need, and actually honoring and nourishing yourself. I think it's something that I can only speak for women, right? I think as caregivers, it can be very hard. So, what would you say? Because I've heard this before so many times. I don't have time to take care of myself. What would you say?
Yes. So I've said that many times. I don't have the time. And I could show you in my schedule that I did not have the time. And I had to really change my thinking to if this matters to me, I'm going to need to make the time. And I had to be willing to give up other things, like binging Netflix and perhaps getting a little earlier. But what I found was this is really what helped me. I was actually able to find these pockets of time while I'm doing things. For example, if I'm stuck in traffic, a really long traffic jam, or even, 30 minutes around here in Northern Virginia, 30 minutes is nothing. But I could do a lot in those 30 minutes if I'm prepared. I could do some, with my eyes open, I can do some breathing meditation. I can listen to podcasts and learning. I can actually practice self-care in the car on the way to a doctor's office. I needed to reframe that for myself instead of thinking, oh, this traffic is awful. It's like, ooh, I get to, love on me right now and do something fun. I get to call a friend and catch up. I could think about what I'm grateful for. Also, in the doctor's office and in the waiting room, I use those pockets of time to get so much done, catch up on my emails, um, read, pray, do lots of things. So I really encourage people to look at the times where you're waiting a lot. It could be discretionary time and find tiny, tiny pockets in your day. And it may start with 5 minutes, especially if they're a busy mom or if you're a caregiver or if you're a healthcare worker and taking care of other people and then you go home and take care of a parent. Look for these little bits of time because I think that's where I tripped up is I was looking for, a long vacation or a long stretch of time. And I really love what you shared, Katie, with me a couple of months ago. And that's to set the bar really low. Like we have these expectations of making these big changes, but if you set the bar really low, during that season you're in, those little steps are successes for you and they're gonna add up.
And I think I love what you shared, Barb. Looking at what season we're in as well, because I think what I've seen with people and with myself, they might be busy mums, or all of a sudden they're having to look after their parents, and they're still trying to set their routines based on a previous season rather than, like you say, finding these pockets of time. What did your husband notice? I know that he was complimentary about your about your time. What did he notice in you? What were the changes?
For me, probably the most thing is confidence. And if you were to know me 10, 15 years ago, I had very little confidence on the outside. Like public speaking was probably and I think it's the highest thing that people fear the most is public
Mm,
speaking. I was definitely one of those. And my voice would just tremble, I would shake. And I just really, once my nervous system started to calm, he really started seeing me step into some of the things that I'm passionate about, especially when it comes to, leadership, wellness, and their brain health. And I really gave myself permission to be nervous. Like I
mm,
just did. Like I was waiting for all the nerves to go away. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it afraid. I'm going to do it messy. And, sometimes I went splat and did a horrible job, but then I just started really gaining traction. And I had to really get in this mindset of letting myself be imperfect
mm,
and being a recovering perfectionist. That was really, really hard. And I still have that tendency, but when I look back, the times I let myself be imperfect and even messy are the times that I grew the most. And I love, love, love the title of your book because it's all about being messy and the growth
thank you.
happens in the dirt. That is so true for I
Mm,
would say most people.
mm. Well, when you look at your pathway of learning and growth, there has been this amazing tenacity and resilience, Barb, hasn't there? You know?
I Yeah, and I'm gonna say yes just because it took a lot of work and with resilience, and it's interesting with the different, science and studies, resilience takes place. Like it takes place with that individual. It's even greater when you have resilience with community. We
Mm,
can learn to co-regulate together and create this space of growth for each other, even when we've been through really hard things. And I think of my mom when I think of resilience. She was a sharecropper in Mississippi, and her mom was a single mom, 13 kids. My mom was the youngest. And I remember she would talk about how she wouldn't go to school during cotton season because she was working the fields. And she said she would literally crawl home on her hands and knees, bloodied just from being in the cotton field. And I think of that as true resilience, being able to, get through that muck and get
mm,
bloodied, but then still take that and determine to be strong. And I feel like that was instilled in me, especially with my
mm,
mother.
mm. Gosh, what an amazing background, amazing story. For you, Barb, talking about this, your Regroup book, what was the inspiration to write this?
I will be honest, I had not planned or wanted to write another book. I am a classic introvert and I don't like to be out there. But I'm one of these people that if I feel a calling on my heart, if I feel God tapping on my shoulder and saying, you need to do this, uh, I will listen. Sometimes it gets me a while to get going, but I my first book, it was a 4-year project. This was a quicker turnaround and I had support. I really felt that this was a time to share this. Like, what's it going to take for us to wake up, as a
Mm,
people, as supporters, caregivers, community leaders? What's it going to take for us to really wake up? And knowing the rise of compassion and decision fatigue, just that toll that it takes on our well-being. I felt like I had a responsibility to do that, and
mm,
to not do it was being irresponsible. So that's just something that I felt willing to get uncomfortable for if I could be a voice or even help someone have the language to what they're feeling, and then making these little adjustments and realize there's nothing wrong with me. These are signs, these are signals and messages that my body and brain are telling me, and I
Mm,
can actually listen to them. I don't have to do this big, huge life overhaul. It sounds glamorous, but it's not realistic. But I can take these tiny shifts that will help me feel like myself again.
mm. I think it's interesting listening to you, Barb, and then my brain keeps going back to the seasons because quite often when we're in that season and our children may be older and our parents are getting ill, it quite often times in with menopause and perimenopause as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
So we think
Ooh,
as
yeah.
women, we think we're crazy,
That's a whole other topic we could talk about. Yes.
but maybe we just need a regroup.
Yes, it's really interesting because we are built with our own internal regroup system. And
Mm,
we hear about the circadian rhythm. There's also something called the ultradian rhythm, and it's tied to our
mm,
brain. Every 90 minutes, our brain does this amazing flushing and recycling to get rid of toxins, but it's also meant to give us a boost at the end of that. And what it does is our calcium, other things drops, and we get tired, and that's a signal for us to regroup. That literally is a message. And typically we go to caffeine or we work harder, we bypass that, and it gets louder. If we, it just keeps going. But if we give ourselves every 90 minutes, they recommend 15 minutes, 20 minutes regroup, but even 10 minutes, five
mm,
minutes is better than nothing. And just get up, do something totally different, go outside, listen to some energizing music or calming music, but just these little brain breaks. They could be little regroups. They don't have to be a whole day, in a month like I do, but
mm.
just giving yourselves these little moments and energy boost often is enough for someone to feel more productive or feel like, I still am taking care of me. Even if it's not a lot in this season, I still took time for me today.
Mm, mm. That's wonderful. And it's so important because I know of so many people that I know. And again, like you were saying, they're pushing for the holiday, they're pushing for the weekend, they're pushing for that day off. But your book enables people how to learn how to take these little mini breaks to flush the
Yes,
brain.
absolutely. And I do give people suggestions. Like if, let's say they have a longer time and they're needing more of sabbatical, sometimes a retreat or an extended amount of time is a regroup that's needed. If people don't have the luxury of clocking out, there's these little mini regroups that I have in the back. And then there's some that are little, like an hour long. So the idea is to really make it work for you. So what works for me, Katie, may not work for you, but
Yeah,
really testing these out and noticing how you're feeling once you do that.
yeah, that's amazing, Barb. So you say regroup isn't about pushing harder in a society where everyone seems to be pushing very, very hard. Uh, you say it's about pausing long enough to get clear. Why do you think pausing is so difficult for people who have a lot of responsibility?
Yes, I think pausing can be difficult because we've trained our nervous systems, or our job has trained our nervous systems to be on high alert. And so when we pause, our nervous system's saying, wait a minute, pause. I'm supposed to be working up here and working really hard. The pause goes against what that rhythm has been, trained to do. So that can, definitely be something, one of the reasons why. Another reason why is just the messaging in our society and maybe other societies too. Work harder, drive harder, go big, go home. There's this strong message to keep doing. We work, 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 then we can play. But why can't we
Mm,
have both? Why can't we have both? Just like when we breathe, we don't just breathe one way. We take an in breath and an out breath. And they support each other. They go hand in hand.
mm. Oh, I love that. I love that they go hand in hand and knowing that you can have both, right? It's incredible.
You can have both. Yes,
Mm, mm,
absolutely.
mm. So if someone is listening, feeling exhausted, but doesn't want to admit they're burning out, and I know you talked about this, Barb, you started to get little whispers and twinges. What are some of the early warning signs that somebody needs a regroup?
Yeah, so I tell people don't wait until you get burnout. I've been
Don't
through a
wait for
couple
the
of
two by
bouts.
four.
Yes, I've been through several bouts of burnout. You can learn a lot by yourself. I will say, I tell people come to the school of hard knocks. I learned the hard way. I do say that being proactive early on, so that you build that resilience, it's better to start sooner and little and just making it a lifestyle. But some of the signs that it could be early signs or even just a quiet burnout. And these are really, I would say, for people that are also high functioning. Again, they're achieving a lot, they're meeting deadlines, they're responsible, dependable. Chronic stress, definitely. Also, things that used to seem really easy are heavy or hard, exhausting. Just noticing yourself, your energy drains are a lot, it just drains more quickly. One of the E in regroup, each thing stands for something,
Mm,
is for your energy, and knowing that your energy is your fuel, because most people, they go to time management. How am I managing my time? But a layer under that is energy. When you can look at
mm,
it from that lens and realize your energy drives and supports your time management, and look at the key areas where you're giving, you're committing, you're thinking, and where are you overdoing in those? And I call them
mm,
overings. Where are you overcommitting? Where are you over giving? And so those things in themselves, giving, that's wonderful. But if you're over giving and not restoring your energy, that's going to deplete you and make
mm,
you more susceptible to things like burnout.
mm. I absolutely loved everyone was in a workshop with Barb and she talked about overing and it was like a million light bulbs that went up for me. So yeah, Barb, can you run through, you've done energy, you've done the E, can you run through the acronym for everybody so we know what this book is about?
Okay, so going by memory. So
Yeah.
regroup is, it starts with the foundation of resilience and knowing that you are already resilient and how can you activate that. And then the E is for energy. The G is guard your margin. And that is
Mm,
really looking a hard look at the boundaries that you have for yourself. Often we think we have to set boundaries with everyone else, but where are the, boundaries for yourself? Where are you creating white space? So that's what I talk about, margin and white space. And then regulate your nervous system. That's a big one for a lot of people. And so how do you think about, how you're showing up, how you're leading under pressure, how your nervous system is responding to that, and how you can come from a more steady approach when leading others. And then operate from alignment. This is really looking at your values, your principles, the things that drive you, your purpose, those things that give you clarity. Because when you lead from that, you're going to really pay a lot more attention to where you're spending your energy. And then update your thinking. That's a big one with a lot of people. And the idea is not every thought deserves a seat at the table. And so, how do
mm,
you capture, how do you renew your mind? And then P, which I think is both of our favorite, prioritize brain health. And it is
yes.
really understanding that mental health is brain health. And when you really safeguard your brain, your mind follows, these other things follow. So, that's the framework in a short spiel.
Yeah, that's beautiful. If someone is listening, right, and they feel seen in this conversation right now, because I feel seen listening to you, Barb, and I know
Oh,
so many people that I know are kind of at this point in their life where they need to regroup. what would you, as the author of Regroup, what would you say to them right now?
Wow. I think the biggest thing is to give yourself permission just to take a little time each day, 5 minutes to yourself. Just because often when we're going so fast and taking care of everyone, there's a whole, like, there's so many things that we miss that we can't see unless we're still. And
Mm.
I think if you don't have 5 minutes, do 2 minutes, like literally put your timer on. And I think you'll be amazed. You'll probably either feel, oh, I really needed this, or you're going to feel this is torture. You're going to be aware that this is going to take some practice. Uh,
Mm.
and it's a starting point. Everyone has to start somewhere. It took a really long time for me to heal my nervous system, get out of the cycle of panic attacks. It's completely possible. And it is retraining your brain. Like, we've trained it to be a certain way. We can train it to be this other way too.
Mm. For your own journey, Barb, using the regroup method, how has it impacted your ability to set boundaries now for your own energy?
I think this book holds my feet to the fire. It's causing me to really practice more what I'm teaching. And
Yes.
someone we both know, Dr. Amen, says if we don't live the message, we suck as messengers. And I have that voice sitting on my shoulder a lot. So it's really being, this is still for me. I'm still in process.
Mm.
I had to do it ironically, when this book was published at the very end of 2025, actually, I think it was beginning of 2026, within 2 weeks, we had two deaths in the family, extended family. It just really threw me into this whole grief wrapped around my birth family, which is now they passed on. And I was surprised that I went that deep into it, but I realized I needed to still give myself permission to have that time at Regroup.
Mm.
And so I honor when things like that come up. It's frustrating, I have to be honest, because there's so many things to do. But I know I can honor that. And when I do, I'm able to work through that and release those heavy emotions.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's wonderful, Barb, because there's so many of us walking around that are constantly on and not taking that time to regroup and honor where we are and even go through the process. And I think that the buildup of this actually leads to the plank of wood hitting you in the
The
head,
two
whether
by
that's
four. Yeah.
illness or something that happened, or the burnout, because we aren't processing along the way.
Yes, definitely. And I think the reminder is, if we're experiencing something like that, it doesn't mean we failed or we're failures. It means that we have an opportunity to lean in and listen to what's happening, and to really honor what our brain, our body, and even our spirit is telling us.
Mm, that's amazing, Barb. So in your book, in the book Regroup, are there tools in there? Is there journaling? Tell me about what's in the book for the person that's listening.
Yes. So for each of the letters in the framework, I do give some suggestions, like for the regulate your nervous system. I definitely recommend one of the tools, meditation. Develop a practice of meditation. For a lot of people, that can feel a little strange if they haven't done it before. For me, I had to work with it because I have tinnitus in both ears, really, really loud ringing, and I used to think I was supposed to stop every sound, every thought, and it caused more anxiety. And I had someone say, learn to work with the noise. And so I
Mm,
use those as my focal point when I meditation, and I've made peace with that. And
mm,
I've really used meditation, and as a, outcome, more focus, more energy. And with an ADD brain, that is very, very helpful. But I had to start really, really small and
mm,
step it up gradually. And for the update your thinking, really questioning and examining the thoughts that you're attaching to. That's something that I know we both learned, with brain health. For me, there was like an infestation of automatic negative
Mm,
thoughts. And it's like, okay, which one do I focus on? I can't focus all of them. So I had to really start with one and realize they connected to each other. So really questioning and not judging myself when I had them. I used to judge myself for feeling negative or feeling depressed or having these anxiety attacks, but really having compassion really allows you to stop layering the judgment that we tend to do.
mm, mm. I love that. I love your phrase working with the noise because it's
Yes.
such a key theme, isn't it? Finding the rest within the busy, working with the noise in your mind if it's automatic negative thoughts. And I just think that the timing of your book, Barb, is so important for everybody. Everybody that is navigating this modern society, you know. So if people would like to purchase your book, where can they do that?
Uh, right now, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. They can get it in paperback, hardback copy. The audiobook is currently being processed, so that should be up soon.
Oh, fantastic. Are you reading it,
Yes.
Barb, or have you got someone to do it?
I I got someone to do it. Yes, I could have done it myself, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let someone do that for me. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a new experience, but I'm excited.
Oh, beautiful. And your website, Barb, if people want to reach out to you?
Yes, discovernextstep.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today, Barbara. I feel absolutely blessed
Oh,
to
thank you.
to know you and highly encourage anyone and everyone to have a look at your book Regroup because it
Oh,
sounds I'm waiting for my copy in the mail. So I will do a
yay.
follow-up to this interview talking about Barbara's book.
Well, Katie, thank you. I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you, Barb. We'll see you soon.
Bye.